So I am Emily Kady. I'm your host of Spiritually Sensitive Unleashed podcast, empowering sanctuary for empaths and highly sensitive people. My mission is to support and uplift those who are overwhelmed by the weight of others' expectation. This episode is all about reclaiming or going in the mystical realms and connecting with the universe, spirit guides, and angels to uncover your authentic truth and purpose. Today, I am so excited to have Dr. Ashley Ann join me. Dr. Ann is the founder of Depressed and Divine, or excuse me, Depressed to Divine, a program that helps spiritual women struggling with depression reclaim their will to live and fully embody the beautiful life that they are in. For most of her life, Dr. Ann's depression was her dirty little secret. Medication, mental health, therapy, and holistic interventions failed to help. So as a type A high achiever, she fought her battles alone. But masking was no longer an option, and when she hit a health crisis in her 20s, made it nearly impossible to live on. So, Ashley, I am so grateful that you are here today, and thank you for taking the time to be with us and share your story, as well as, if we have time, open up to the live audience with any questions and answers that they may have. Can you start out with what happened in your 20s that you were masking your depression, and what actually happened that you made yourself realize you had to reach out for help?
Yeah, so thank you so much for having me here. Your audience is like my people, empaths, sensitive, spiritually inclined people. It took me a long time to figure out that that's who I was. And actually, I would say that in my mid-20s, I was probably at the height of being disconnected from my spirituality, from being disconnected with my empathic abilities. And it really just, I was a hot mess. It was a full-blown health crisis for me. So a little bit of a backstory. I'm sure I'll get into the longer version of it a little bit later, but I am a counseling psychologist. So I was a licensed therapist for almost 10 years. And in 2010 is when I started my training. And I started seeing clients right away and became specialized in trauma therapy, somatic interventions, understanding how the past informs our present and our future. And I was trained at Northwestern University, which I'm completely biased of, is one of the best training institutes in the world for counselors. And I stayed there and I worked in a fellowship for marriage and family therapy afterwards and was working full time. So I had a caseload of probably 18 clients. And by then, I had been at the agency working as a student for 2 years, and everybody knew I was a trauma therapist. So, of course, everybody referred their toughest cases to me.
Yeah. And how old are you at this point?
26, 27. Yeah, so a
Young.
baby. I was really super
Yeah.
young. Um, and what happened, which like was the real turning point in my life, was that I was just crippled by how sick I was. I lost weight without trying. I had the worst acne, worse than it was when I was a teenager. I had terrible digestive issues. On many occasions at 2 in the morning, I would be calling my mother, debating whether or not I should go to the ER because my period pain was so bad. Um, I was in a toxic relationship that I couldn't seem to untangle myself from. And I was working at least 60 hours a week for very, very little pay. And the most disheartening part of that was that I was trying. Like at that point, I was already doing yoga and I was meditating. I was journaling. I was opting for self-care and yoga sessions instead of, zoning out in front of the TV. I was going to therapy once a week, if not twice a week. And I was on medication at that time, I first had panic disorder diagnosis, and then we tried a bipolar diagnosis. So I went on lorazepam and trazodone at different points. So I was on medication. And when it came to my clinical work, I knew that was burning me out. And I was surrounded by some of the best therapists in the country. And the best thing that they could tell me was like, hold space and take care of yourself. I was going to my OBGYN, I was going to a cardiologist, I went to a GI doctor, and nothing was working, going to an esthetician. So I'm spending thousands of dollars and all of my energy and time trying desperately to get healthy, and nothing had worked. Nobody could help. Um, so at that point, I really had to kind of make some decisions about what I was going to do because the path I was on was kind of scary.
Absolutely. So what were the decisions? Because it sounded like you were trying really hard to take care of yourself and your situation, but things were starting to compound and get worse. They
Yes,
weren't
they
getting
were.
better.
No. So if anybody out there is an empath or a sensitive or a type A or just a woman in the world, one of the things that I was really good at is I just started masking. And I didn't have that word. I didn't know what that word. And if anybody is listening and you don't know what that word is, it's when you put out into the world another version of yourself. And then as soon as the doors closed, you are somebody else. And that was like my only coping strategy was like, okay, go out, be a counselor, be somebody who's helping others, show up for your friends, drive 4 hours to be at family events, like be the best person you can on the outside. And then I would just totally have to close myself from the world, recover, and like shut people out from the struggle that was really happening because you can only reach out so many times, right? You can only look for help so many times and to not have a solution. So there, I don't, in looking back, the decisions that I had at the time was I either needed to quit my job because it was clearly making it worse. And I had just spent $250,000 on my education. Like
Oh,
it was an investment.
yeah.
Um,
In this specialized area.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I was supposed to be a licensed counselor and it was killing me. I either had to do that or I don't know what. Because at that time, my depression was so bad that I was going to end up in an institution or killing myself. Like I don't take that lightly, but
No.
that is my dirty little secret. Like that's the part of me that I don't talk about very often. I don't um I didn't know how to talk about it back then, but for me there was like this rumbling of like your depression that you've been battling your entire life since you were really little is going to kill you one way or another. You're going to drink too much, you're going to hurt yourself, or you're going to end up having to be institutionalized because this is not sustainable. You're so sick. Um, so I pride myself, I will say, I am a very stubborn, willful soul. Always have been since I was very little.
It's
And
because
I
you're an
just,
old soul. You know this, right? You're a
yes.
total old soul. I can
Thank you for
feel it.
seeing that. Thank you for seeing that and saying that. That part of me had not died yet. Like she was not giving up and really felt like there's got to be something more, right? These people have to be wrong. Like this can't be right. This can't be all there is. So at that point, I started doing a ton of research. I used my very analytical brain and I went into everything. And I started with neuroscience and started with understanding how we pick up other emotions in our bodies, like other people feeling things. How does that actually end up in my cells? Nobody could tell me that. So I had to create my own model and look at the neuroscience and understand
Is
how.
this being just in general as people, or is this being specific to an empath
So,
or
great
highly
question.
sensitive?
Everyone has the equipment. So everyone is always picking up on other people's energies. That's how humans communicate. Like we communicate through yawns and
Yes,
nonverbals
right.
and all the things, right? I think the difference between a human, it's called a resonance system, like frequencies that resonate.
Mhm.
The difference between somebody who it doesn't consider themselves an empath and somebody who does is that we are aware of it. We have been either socialized or naturally inclined to feel that change, to feel those shifts. So then sometimes it feels like more of a burden because we are aware of it and it ends up being something that we can kind of pay attention to. So that was the first thing is I started to understand that what people were saying and thinking and feeling and doing was actually impacting the way my heart beat, the way my stomach worked, the way my reproductive cycle flowed. And the first action I took around that was I broke up with my boyfriend at the time. It was not a good relationship. It was super toxic for both of us. And I remember going home afterwards and sitting in my 250 square foot apartment. It was very small. You could see the toilet from the kitchen. Sitting there and realizing, oh, okay, there's more to this mind body stuff. Like these relationships that I have, they matter. They're contributing to what's going on for me. And that was the first moment that I felt that energetic break. Like in this room, I can say karmic break, energetic break, like soul pattern. It broke, but I felt it in my body. Like I felt my lungs release and, my shoulders drop. And it was a
Just having
realization,
that awareness
just the awareness that
and
breaking up
breaking
with my
off the
boyfriend,
relationship.
yes, literally
Wow.
changed the way that I functioned. And so I was like, okay, there's hope there then. Because now if I understand how this is working in that relationship, I can take this to my clients. And I started
Amazing.
working with my clients differently and helping them integrate their emotions in session and energies so that it wasn't getting stuck in my body. And I mean, it took me then, 14 more years to put together a massive amount of research that really led to a lifestyle now that honors my metaphysical and my physical self alongside each other. And I am happy, healthy, and whole. Like I just want to skip to the good stuff because like that was the turning point. You kind of asked me what happened in my 20s. That's what happened. I completely got burnt out, went into the research, manufactured my own manual for what it means to be a human, and have been following that ever since. And life is so much better now.
So since you had that shift, you're saying life's better. Can you give some examples of like before we got on here, you're like, yeah, I surrendered my calendar to the universe. And you have this freedom that most people don't have.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so can you share some examples of like how that works for you?
Yeah. So it was a long journey to put together the lifestyle that I use now because I basically had to get certified in everything under the sun, like, or to experience everything I could possibly experience. So, after I realized how to master relationships within the counseling framework, then I went from there to getting my PhD, and my dissertation was on understanding the neurological mechanisms underneath depression and anxiety and all the things that we suffer from. And at that same time, I was surrounded by healers. So I was getting Reiki sessions. I was getting Akashic record readings. I was with a holistic chiropractor who had me, laying on an amethyst crystal table. I got my yoga certification and for 9 months totally changed my life. Um, and really just started to understand that the things that I learned in neuroscience were the same things that were going on in all of these modalities. They were just different names and different frameworks. And then I really got into the quantum mechanics of manifestation and put it all together. And there are just so many examples I could share.
Can I just pause really quickly because you just said something that made me like triggered something for me. So you said basically what you're learning in the metaphysical world was what you had been studying in the the in your doctorate in the psychology, the medical world.
Yes.
They match up,
Yes.
just different terms. Like what exactly? I'm just curious a little bit
Yes.
more for you to
So
elaborate.
So I can get very nerdy about this for a very long time. So I'm a yoga instructor, so I work with the chakra systems. So the seven chakras, the root, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. So there are seven of them that people mostly work with. There are a lot more chakras, of course.
Right.
So I knew that from being a yoga student. But in neuroscience, and rest their souls, Jaak Panksepp and Lucy Biven put out this amazing book. I think it must have been 2012, right when I was getting into all of this, called Archaeology of Mind. And their big thing was like animals have feelings too. Animals have emotions, and really used animals and animal research, and then the research that we have on the brain to discover that we have these things called affective systems. So it starts with an A-F-F-E-C-T-I-V-E, affective system. And guess how many there are? There are 7.
7.
Yes. So rage, root chakra; lust, sacral chakra; fear, solar plexus; care, heart chakra; panic, throat chakra; seeking, third eye; and then play, crown chakra.
Wow.
I know. I just like blew my
That's
mind, right?
amazing. I love that.
Yeah. So that was really the basis of a lot of my dissertation, was using those affective systems to help us understand disease and disorder. And then looking at the chakra system, I haven't turned those off. Anybody
I've
know how to
turned them
turn?
off on mine and they still come up, so whatever. It's all good.
I
Spirit
sometimes feel
saying, good job, girl.
that's what I was
You're doing
gonna
the right
say.
thing.
That's like my spirit guide going, yep, this is the track.
Yeah,
This is
she's
the
on track.
track.
Keep going.
So I got really excited because I could start to explain disease and disorder using that framework. And then I took my yoga training and got more into the chakras, and then got super nerdy into quantum mechanics and quantum physics, and found out that you can map out the fundamental particles in the same way.
Wow.
So if you take neuroscience and yoga philosophy and quantum mechanics and lay them on top of each other, you can, I have put together a 10-dimensional map of being human. So at a glance, based on how somebody's feeling, thinking, or acting, I can predict how their body's going to respond, how their energy is responding, what karmic patterns they're sorting out, just by looking at this map, because it is a summary of what I feel human knowledge has given us so far. And it's kind of funny to think that I had to create that to figure myself out, but like that's what it took. It took creating an interdimensional manual. And as an empath, I feel like that's what I needed as a spiritual, empathic, ethereal being. I use this analogy all the time, but I feel like I was born and somebody gave me a manual to a 4-door sedan and said, here's the pedal and here's the brake, here's the steering wheel, here's the 4 doors. This is how you're supposed to operate. And then I stumbled into this world as the sensitive person I am, the sensitive body I am, the feminine I am, like with ovaries that don't follow any masculine rules. And trying to use that manual, I was like, well, what the heck is wrong with me? Because they're saying I have 2 pedals, but I definitely have 10. They're saying there's 1 steering wheel and I have 3. And I can hover. So why isn't everybody hovering? Oh, because the manual doesn't say so. And what I feel like my research gifted me is a manual for being actually an interdimensional human. And literally all I do every day is just follow that manual. I just follow those rules instead of the rules I was given at the beginning of my life, which were killing me anyway.
Um, those rules need to be like taught to every empath. Well, probably everyone, but every empath, because we are, a square peg in a round hole here in this plane. We don't understand how to operate. We don't fit into the linear way of thinking at all.
Mm-mm.
I wish I had this manual when I was a kid.
Me too. Me too. Because that would have saved me so much grief, time and energy. I wish I could have gone back to the 6-year-old who was journaling about wanting to die back then and given her this manual and said, just do this instead. Stop listening to everybody else, because what everybody else is saying isn't true for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. This
So
is
you,
incredible.
oh, thank you. So you asked for like some of the things,
Yes.
that
Examples.
so I talk a lot about like my master routine, um, which I do every single day. And part of it has to do with behaving with my body differently, relating to my mind differently, connecting with my spirit guides. My master routine begins with dancing. Like that is me getting those particles moving and dancing and breathing in the morning. Those are non-negotiables. These are like, I call them highly sensitive hygiene. Like if you're going to brush your teeth, you need to dance. If you're going to take a shower, you need to do breath work. Like these aren't things that we need to pick and choose. But other things, which I'm sure you can relate to, is every night I cut cords with everybody
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
was with that day, and I clear my energy and I burn my incense. Um, so those are some of the basic things, but a lot of it is a much more nuanced, like surrendering my calendar to the universe, like being very intentional about how I communicate with other people. Um, Knowing how to differentiate their emotions from mine, knowing how to communicate with my spirit guides every single minute of my life, like because they know better than I do.
Right.
Um, there's just so much that we have to actually learn to be healthy. And sometimes it feels unfair, like to me, this is my bias. But then on most days, I'm like, no, this is amazing. I can't believe I get to live this life and be interdimensional. Um, yeah. So I love it. But it's a different kind of work and it's a different kind of being in the world, like a way of being in the world.
Yeah, it's so fascinating because a lot of those things I already do as well, and not even in tune with your guidelines and what you've done. But I've been doing lots of quantum training, and the my mentor that I've trained under for the last, I don't know, 5 years, I don't know, however long we've been together. She told me the same thing. Start out the day dancing. You got to move your body. You got to imprint that gratitude in you, and the only way to do it is to move.
Mhm.
and and it's like you think of an animal that goes through trauma, they shake it off.
Yeah.
Well, the moving helps us shake off whatever happened in our sleep, whatever settled in our sleep. We got to get it out. I also know, like, um, I astro travel in the middle of the night. So when I get back into my body in the morning, I need to move my body to get back into my body because I'm not in my body. I am,
Yes.
but I'm not. So, yeah, the dancing is amazing to start off the day, moving the body.
Well, and to shake off all of that dream work sometimes. Like, I
Yes.
don't know about you, but like sometimes I wake up and I'm like, I didn't sleep. That was a full night of work. And now like,
Right.
I gotta like
Yeah.
be in this dimension. Because dream work, unless you know what you're doing and how to integrate it, it can be super exhausting, especially if you're
Oh,
having
yeah.
nightmares and going places you don't want to be and like seeing people that are like stuck to you in your past, like so yeah, I love what you just said about dream work because my body might be there, but the rest of me is still working like
Yeah,
full.
exactly. It's not always, you're not always back in. So
Mhm.
sometimes I'll do yin yoga just to slowly move and get back integrated into my body, depending on how restless of a night's sleep I had.
Yeah.
But and then other days I will do the dancing. So I love that you shared that because that is a really powerful technique. And the cutting of the cords, vital for any empath out there.
Hmm.
100%. Every day you have to cut cords.
Yes. So I cut cords every time I leave a grocery store.
Me too.
Like it's
Anytime I'm in
constant.
public, as soon as I'm out, I cut cords.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like it's an easy practice to underestimate because it's literally just saying an invocation. But to
Mhm.
me, it's about taking our consciousness. And in the same way, like if you were to go into a river and have a leech on you, like you would literally see that leech, take a second and pull it off. And
Right.
that's all you're doing on an energetic level when you're cutting cords. You're just like, oh, I see you. And no, it's not. Okay, go ahead, go
Well,
back in the
and
river.
I want to just interject. An invocation is very powerful. And
Yes.
my life has been shifted dramatically because of invocations. And it's not just saying an invocation, like there's power behind it. So it's
Mhm.
setting the intention while you're saying your invocation
Mhm.
and mixing in light of the invocation and the sound of your voice, whether it's internal or external. And that there is so much power in that, that it does clear that energy.
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
really powerful.
It's like invisible swords, right? Like
Yes.
our physical self is such a small part of who we are. things like intention and words and sound and vibration and awareness pack a much more powerful punch than like usually moving our body. So yeah, 100%. They're so powerful.
They are. I don't know. I think I do them every day. Every day I'm in meditation, and there's usually one. I'm working on the mystical Kabbalah. I have a teacher that has been taking me through that for the last 6 months now. And so the invocations, that is the foundation of it. And it's amazing going through these invocations. Every week I change them, or sometimes I stay with them longer because I want to really integrate that lesson of what it is that I'm learning in the Kabbalah, and having that integrated into my on a cellular level. So it's not just in my mind, it's in my physical body, and I know it.
Embodying it. What other
Yeah.
kind of practices are like part of your routine? Like what is your highly sensitive hygiene?
Yeah. So prior to understanding what even an empath was, like I remember I always had psychics tell me I was an empath, and I'm like, I don't even know what you're talking about. I really didn't understand.
Yeah.
Um, and so I was very sensitive. I would cry at the drop of a hat. I was just taking on everyone else's emotion and not understanding what mine was and what theirs was, like you talked about. And then
Mhm.
once I understood what an empath was, as a highly sensitive person that's also highly intuitive,
Mhm.
it made sense. I'm like, oh yeah, that's me my entire life.
Yeah.
Um, but I um, I start off my day before I even get out of bed. I will cut cords because I do astro travel. So I know in the middle of the night I'm going somewhere. I
Mhm.
work with light beams and I just cut cords. I just need to protect myself. I also call in Archangel Michael. I call in Grandmother Anna. She's one of my main guides I love to work with, who is Jesus's grandmother. And she has the alchemy of liquid light. And so I ask her to pour liquid light onto me every morning just to cleanse, purify, bring coherence, harmony, and balance into me, and transmute all of my cells to love, light, joy, and abundance. And it's just to
Beautiful.
start, she like cleanses me, and it start the day right. And then I call in Archangel Michael, and I always ask for protection to be put around me, because again, I don't want other people's energy coming into me that's not mine.
Right.
Um, since just doing that every morning, I'm a different person.
Mhm.
I also will cleanse my chakras every morning too.
Yeah. It's the same as
Some days,
brushing your teeth.
yes, it is. So I'll cleanse my chakras in the shower. Usually, I'll just cleanse them, make sure they're cleansed, and then they're brought into balance
Mhm.
by saying an invocation of what each chakra does, and saying, I am, connected. I am a seeker. I speak truth. I kind of work my way down and see the color of each chakra as I'm speaking it.
Amazing. I love that.
Yes. And that again, that just cleansing your chakra and rebalancing them and claiming what you want
Mhm.
for each chakra changes you. It
Yeah.
just, your whole day goes, at least for me, was wonky. I was just out of whack. I couldn't function. I was always overwhelmed. I was always exhausted. My weekends were not for fun, they were for just recovery.
Right. Yeah.
I had no energy to do anything for years, decades. I didn't want to do anything. And
Yeah.
then learning these skills, I have I have so much more balance.
Mhm.
I don't never feel overwhelmed. I don't feel
Yeah.
like stressed. And everything falls into place, and there's just this beautiful like flow and harmony that I get to dance with every day.
Yes.
It doesn't say that every day I'm perfect, but 90% of the time it is, if
Yeah.
not more.
Well, it's a practice, right? Of alignment and realignment and alignment and realignment. And I the one of the reasons that I've started talking about my experience as depression is because, and I said this to you when we met, like the burden and the heaviness that happens in our day to day of not being able to be an empathic person, of being a sensitive person in an insensitive world, all of that accumulates. And for me, it started when I was super little. Like for most of us, it usually does, whether or not we're, babies or 27 years old. There are things in this world that negate our truth. Um, try to control our truth, try to pull our energy, try to do all of that. And I feel like that's encapsulated by depression, like the fatigue, the not wanting to do anything, the not wanting to work, the not knowing what we are supposed to be doing, not feeling happy, not feeling aligned, not doing the work we're meant to do, not feeling authentic in our relationships. All of that to me is from the burden of that accumulated stress that never gets resolved. And for the longest time, at least for me, it was diet and exercise. That's how you stay
Yeah.
healthy. Diet, exercise, if you're eating right and you're moving your body, you should be fine.
Right.
Except I wasn't. I was no better off. And it wasn't until like a lot of the things that you're talking about, to me, they're hygiene. Like things are
Mhm.
never going to stop coming in. That world, as much as I want to change it, I've learned that the way I'm going to change it is by changing myself and doing what I can control. I can't stop the world from doing certain things to me, but I can continually practice that interdimensional hygiene to clear it out constantly.
Yeah.
Whether it's, doing that beautiful practice of clearing your chakras in the shower. I love that because it's got water too, calling in your archangels, cutting cords. And also, as we're talking, I'm thinking about some of just the basic physical things about being in a body with ovaries that nobody taught me, like how endocrine disruptors can really
Right.
make us feel shut down, and how natural flavors and parabens and all of the crap that's in our food isn't the only disruption that's happening in depression, right? Serotonin is not the only thing. You've got cortisol, you've got estrogen, you've got progesterone, and so many people with ovaries don't get the information about how to operate our bodies. And so we miss out on that hygiene too. Like what to
Right.
eat, what not to eat, what to watch, what not to watch. Like, I don't know about you, but I can't watch something from the 90s and not feel like I'm, overweight because everybody is so tiny and so thin. Like we consume that
Mhm.
and we then integrate it. So as we're talking, I'm thinking about all these ethereal practices that you've put into play and how I've put into play. And then also the other part of it is like, how do we exist in the world to keep our actual physical brain healthy and our actual gut healthy and our actual ovaries healthy? So much of that education isn't something that I learned and was massively contributing to my depressed stress too. I don't
Is
know
that
if you've
some?
had any sensitivities.
Oh, 100%. I mean, every time I go into spirit, all like right now, spirit is showing me like leafy green vegetables, like vibrant colored food that is ideally grown within your community
Mm,
and it's organic.
and
That's
organic, yeah.
like, but that's not always possible.
Yeah.
So, sometimes it's not having the money to go buy the organic produce, but at least taking the time if you don't have the money to definitely make sure you're making right choices in your food. And you know internally what you should eat.
Hmm.
We all do, but we weren't taught it. So it's
No.
like tuning into your body. A lot of the times, too, like, do you ever do muscle testing?
Hmm. Yep.
Okay, so I love to do muscle test different food, like if I should eat it or not.
Yeah.
Because there's some vegetables my body doesn't want
Yeah.
at different
Yes.
times.
Yes. Yes.
And
Yes.
so I will muscle test to identify, okay, yeah, this is what my body needs right now.
And learning to trust that too, right? And to trust that our body knows, um, and to honor that. And I like, this is a whole other bag that we can choose to open or not, but you're talking about money, and that's been a major part of my story and a major part of the story of the people that I've served, whether it was, back when I was a counselor or when I was doing coaching or now in my program. So many of us, like this whole planet, doesn't really understand how money works and
Mm-mm.
how it's an energetic gift we
Give and
give to
take.
ourselves, and
Yes.
something that is about allowing. And so many empaths, myself included for a long time, are stuck in cycles of poverty, which then feed into all the other things, right? Because if we don't give ourselves the gift of receiving money and
Right.
feeling good around money, then we will create scripts of, I can't afford the organic, or I can't do this, or I can't do this. And it's all intertwined, right? Like So I just thought of that when you commented on it. So many empath, sensitive, and spiritual women are constantly worrying about money, like I was for
I,
so many years.
I'm so glad you brought that up because it's true, because we don't know our own worth.
Hmm.
And if we don't know our own worth, we never think we're worthy of having somebody give us, at least that's my experience.
Hmm. Yep.
I'm not
And
worthy of somebody giving me something.
yes, and and literally, so this is the way I think about it, and this is the way I teach about it. We often think that, worthiness is something that we negotiate in a contract, right? Or we have to have somebody else and convince them, because we grow up in this culture where we think that other people pay us because we have been given paychecks, or we sign a contract, and so then that's the money that people are giving us, or our clients are giving us money, when in reality, our lack of sense of self-worth, or our self-worth, whatever level that is that we've learned, because people teach us that during our upbringing, we've got soul
Yeah,
and
we're
patterns
programmed.
around there, right?
Mhm.
Exactly. We're
Yeah.
programmed around that.
Mhm.
That's what we end up agreeing to. So I always say that to, especially when I work with wellness entrepreneurs, the first thing we start talking about is, remember, you are paying yourself. Your clients aren't paying you. You're the one who's setting your rate. You're the one who's dictating how worthy you are and how much value you have to add. And we need to work on that first, because nothing else works unless that's set into play.
Right.
Yeah.
So, how do you create a higher reset point?
Mhm.
Because a lot of empaths, their set point is so low, right? How is there, like, can you give like a little tip or something that people can take away of a reset point? And this could be for anything from finances to health to relationships, to any area of your life. This reset point, because our reset points are set at a certain level and we have to increase our vibration to get them higher.
Yeah. So tell me more. I love that phrase, set point, and I think I know what you mean, but could you define that a little bit?
So if my set point is, I believe I can only charge $50 an hour,
Mhm.
but really my skill set is at $222 an hour, and I just don't see that. Actually, my skill set's higher than 220. I charge 222 an hour, but it's higher. But that's my set point is 222 an hour. Um, I know my skill set is much higher, but
Mhm.
my comfort is 222 an hour. Let's just say that, because that is the reality for me.
Mhm.
So how do I go higher? Not that I'm going to at this moment, but if I wanted to go take my pricing up,
Mhm.
does that make
So,
sense to
yes,
you?
it does. Thank you for defining that, because that's exactly what I was thinking you were saying. And this is going to maybe sound a little weird to people about my response, but it also might deeply resonate. Um, are you familiar with the crabs in a bucket phenomenon?
No.
Okay. So if you go to a beach and you want to catch crabs, you pick them up and you put them into a bucket. The really messed up thing is that you don't need to put a cover on the bucket. Like, crabs can crawl
Right.
out.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they won't, because their set point is they won't go up.
Actually, there are some crabs that do see the light and they're like, I think I can get out of here, because I remember that the sand is just on the other side of this bucket. So what will happen is a crab will go up the side of the bucket. And then the really messed up thing is that the other crab will grab its leg and pull it down.
Oh my gosh.
And that is why somebody who's catching crabs never has to put a lid on the bucket, never has to put a limit, never has to put boundaries, never has to yell at the crabs or punish them, because the crabs themselves have learned to regulate and to keep people, crabs, from going outside of the bucket. So, I mean, think about it. On one hand, that's really messed up, right? Because there's freedom up there, and now there's a crab down in the water pulling the other crab down back into the prison. But at the same time, it's actually really a sweet gesture. So it's complicated, right? Because it's like, I don't know what's out there. This hot sun is the only thing I see. So if
Right.
you go out of this bucket, you might die. So I think that I can see this, and I'm just going to pull you back down here to keep you safe. Humans, for better or for worse, are the same as crabs. Our bodies, I'm not going to say humans, our bodies and our brains just want to keep our bodies alive. So we've got this whole set of neural circuitry in our brain that is about keeping our social connections and prioritizing social connections above all else. Because let's face it, that's the only way we transcended the food chain. Like, we should have been eaten by lions, tigers, and bears a long time ago.
Right.
But the reason we didn't is because we started to work together, right? Like, there was a mammoth, and the mammoth came, and the one person, had a spear, and one person had a rock, and another person had, a rope, and we worked together. Oh, there's
Wow. We really did work together. That's awesome.
I love that. Spirit's like, yep, keep talking. This is good.
Exactly. I love that.
Oh my gosh. So we all work together and we create fireworks, right? Like,
Right.
that's so good. That's so good. Then we get to take down the woolly mammoth, right? So we learned a long time ago, our brain evolved into understanding that our social connections are what keep us alive.
Yes.
So when we grow up, we want to stay in the same bucket as the people around us, because we learned that our parents and our siblings and our cousins and our teachers and all the people in our life are going to help us survive. And if we leave the bucket, we'll die, right? So when we're talking about a set point, what I always ask people is to look around and ask themselves, who are they willing to lose? Or who are they scared they're going to lose? Who are they worried they're going to disappoint? Who are they worried is going to judge them? Who is going to tell them, who do you think you are? Or who is going to feel, like inferior or uncomfortable or ashamed because they're not making as much as you, or they're not as healthy as you, or they're not as strong as you? Because that's what's really holding them back.
Wow. That's powerful. Yeah, because I think I've had spiritual mentors that I've trained with in the past, and they're like, Emily, you should be charging 450 an hour. And one, I'm like, I want to serve people. So I want to be able to, I don't want to be out of reach for people. So that would be, but that's from me. I want to be able to have people be able to, afford my services. So maybe that's part of my, holding me back is my tribe, and making sure I can connect with them and help them how I can. And the other thing I'm thinking about is when you courageously left your boyfriend in your 20s. He was you had to let him go so you could have your awakening.
And was one of the many losses. Many. I feel like I spent the next decade shedding. Like, I feel like at 26 or 27, however old I was, that was the beginning of a 7-year cycle of just letting go and letting go and letting go. And at the same time, because you don't do one at a time, also letting in. Like, my version of who I was meant to be, like who I would have been had I not been, shamed and shut down for all of my superpowers and sensitivities.
Wow. That's powerful that you did it. That takes a lot of courage.
It does. Letting go, forgiveness, releasing into the unknown, I think, is the most difficult part of evolving. But it's also like, that's the only place that the good stuff happens. Like, otherwise, I already know
Yes,
what's
otherwise you're
going to happen.
stuck.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you're stuck.
I'm in a framework that I've already built and I can already understand, and I'm not growing.
Right.
Yeah.
Dr. Ann, thank you so much for your time here. I want to see if anybody has any questions, but as I'm reading through, if anybody has any questions, please write it below, your questions that you may have for Dr. Ann or myself. Would be happy to answer in regards to depression, being an empath, helping, maybe we can get some guidance on helping you with a specific set point, whatever it may be that you're seeking some guidance for on. We're happy to take a few minutes and answer a few questions. But as people are putting their questions in, would you be willing to kind of share a little bit about your program and how you help people and how people can get a hold of you?
Sure, thanks. So my program is called Depressed to Divine, and I help spiritually inclined, empathic, sensitive women transform from a place of feeling stuck and ashamed and depressed and just really not who they're supposed to be, to being very mentally happy and clear and confident and physically strong, and healthy in their bodies, and then also relationally more connected. So that's why I say to divine. It's about becoming the person you're meant to be so that you can live the life you're divinely destined to live. It is an educational program and a community where you learn my manual, my interdimensional manual for being happy, healthy, and whole, and get to connect to a wonderful group of women who are doing the same thing.
Wow, I love
Yeah.
it. Can you share a testimonial or two of like some of your clients and the results that they've had?
Yes. So I'm not going to mention any names, but I have one that I will speak to right now. If she's listening, she'll know who she is. Um, 6 months ago, she was filing about to file for bankruptcy. She was in a job where she was devalued and just constantly overwhelmed. Um, and really just stuck in a cycle of scarcity and not having any boundaries with her family and things like that. And through our program, I was just emailing her today and I'm like, she's a different person. She is a completely different person. She is walking and talking abundance all the time. She is manifesting the money that she needs all over and over and over. She did not have to file for bankruptcy. She is using a manifestation blueprint that I give in the program, and we do it every 3 months. And she just mentioned that all of the things happened and she didn't even realize it because it happened so easily and effortlessly. She's front of mind and top of heart right now because I just contacted her today and I'm just like, she's a different person. And it makes me feel so good because I know what I live this life every day and I know what's possible. And I'm so grateful that she gave herself the permission to enroll in the program and to do the work and really find out that it's easier this way. If you know who you are and what you can do, healing doesn't hurt at all. It's pretty
Mm,
easy. Yeah.
I love that. Spirit always tells me if it's of the divine, it's always simple, sacred, and there's three S's. I'm sorry, I'm forgetting the third S right now. Let me see if Spirit will tell me right now. It's simple, sacred, and safe. That's what it is. And yes, healing, that's what healing is.
Yeah,
It
it
doesn't have
is.
to be complicated and you don't have to go relive your pain.
No, and that was one of the reasons why I stopped being a counselor because I could not operate in that paradigm anymore. It
Right?
was hard and messy and it took a long time. And now my clients do in minutes what my clients used to take months to do. So, you mentioned if anybody wants to contact me, they can find my website at ashleyannphd.com. So it's ASHLEYANNE PhD.com.
Thank you. And I put in the description your website as
Thank
well. So
you. Thank
yeah,
you.
absolutely. It doesn't look like we have any questions. I do want to just give one last call. If anybody has questions, I'm happy to tap into spirit. Dr. Ann is happy to channel a message for you. We're here for a few more minutes, but I do see Silver Surfer did have a question. How can a world like this not make how can a world like this not making people depressed, not make people depressed? So I don't know if you want to tackle that one. I'm happy to jump into and give my input there as well.
Yeah, the way that I hear that is like the way that the world right now is kind of set up to make people vulnerable to feeling depressed. Like that's how I read that.
Yeah, that's
And
correct. Hmm.
yeah. Um, and I resonate with that so much. I have spent most of my life feeling angry and bitter and resentful because the world is so, quote, broken. And there are a lot of things going on that frustrate me and make me feel very embarrassed to be human. So I do think that there are a lot of things in this world set up to depress people. And at the same time, that's part of that, part of the reason why we feel that way is because of the institutionalization and the monetization of stress. So a news story doesn't make money unless people click on it. A movie doesn't make money unless people go to it. And most of us have been socialized through media and marketing and just, our own trauma and drama in our life to be attracted to stress and to be attracted to excitement and to be attracted to drama because then something's happening. And it took me a long time to teach my nervous system how to tolerate being safe and how to tolerate being in a very level homeostasis most
Jesus.
of the
Mhm.
time because our brain literally thinks that's bad. The mechanism that tells us what's good and bad switches, and it says stress is good, detachment is good, neglect is good, crisis is good, and so we approach that. So, when we're thinking about, how do we live in a world that it easily makes us feel depressed, what we can do is be very conscious of the way that we consume the world, put up boundaries around media and marketing and technology, and remember that we are soft, squishy animals who need lots of rest and nature and sunshine, and we're not robots. Like, let AI do that. We are meant to be boring and to have routine and to have quiet in our life. So I don't detach from the world completely, but I have a lot of boundaries around it. Um, so that's how I survive. And then, of course, the millions of practices that I put into play every day. So that would be my response.
Thank you. Yeah, that's pretty much what mine is, especially as a highly sensitive person, knowing that our nervous system is very sensitive and we do have to like unplug.
Mhm.
So with the news and the polarization that's going on in the world destroys me. It
Mhm.
can. So I have to completely unplug so that I'm not in the middle of it because being in the middle of it just, there's nothing I can do. All I can do is take care of me. And I'm also under the belief that if I am operating at a higher vibration, if I am whole to the best of my abilities, then I can have more impact on people around me than if I go feed into that stress mechanism that's in place that is around every single one of us. So to me, it's all about how do I take care of me? How do I nurture me? Yes, I'm in tune with what's going on. I'm not saturating myself with it. But and things like even outside of like the media and stuff, even like when I had a job, that was a very painful thing for me. I did not fit into that mold of
Mhm.
having a job, and it stripped me, totally stripped me down.
Mhm.
Depression was just like hovering over me nonstop. And so at that point, I had to make a decision within myself. How do I take care of me? I don't fit into the mainstream structure of things. How do I take care of me and know how I can still cover my bills? How, because it costs money to be a human. That's just the reality. To be alive, you have to be able to make money.
Yep.
And unfortunately, that's where we're at in this 3D reality that we currently live in.
Mhm.
That's not to say that it can't change over time, which we are going through a major awakening and a major shift in the world that over the next 30 years, I do see things shifting and changing that we will not have the same structure that we're currently living in, but it's not going to happen overnight. So
Mhm.
in this moment, knowing, okay, I'm a highly sensitive person. I don't operate the same as, in a corporate setting. How can I still make money and have a life that I love? Well, I don't need the big house. I don't need the fancy cars. There's things I had to strip away to be able to take care of me, which is more important than the physical or the material things that I thought were important at one point.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't
Beautiful.
see any other questions, but I appreciate you joining us. I appreciate everyone that was here with us live. Thank you so much for your wisdom and your insights and being vulnerable and sharing your truth with us.
Thank you for sharing your community and having me on. It's so nice.
Absolutely. Well, we'll definitely have to do this again. I really would love to do more Q&A and have some live interaction with the audience. I think that this is, a powerful platform for us to really connect and help people, give them some guidance and direction. So maybe we'll have to get together in the future and make something happen here.
I love
So,
it. I love
yeah.
it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. And again, if you want to get in touch with Dr. Ann, her website is in the link below. And please follow and like this video if you liked it. Thanks, guys.